Just wanted to give a bit of an overview. I know plenty of you are familiar with RCS, but for those of you who aren't, there's a few core areas that we operate in. And so one of those core areas we operate in is in education and helping people grow their knowledge. And the flagship program around that is our Grazing for Profit and Farming and Grazing for Profit schools, which is your week-long intensive if you wanted to do or to refresh what it's like to do a 3-year ag degree in a week, then that is the best thing in the world available to do that. The Grazing for Profit's now been running for 35 years, and so it's a well-established program with a set of principles across all topics, which we'll cover a couple of them shortly. We also offer short courses which do a deeper dive into grazing management and business management, and they're offered both face-to-face and remotely. For following on and to really support the implementation of those principles, then we have our advisory work and our coaching. So we've got our Next Steps coaching program, which is either a 3 or 6 month coaching program available for people who want that hand holding to know how to put things into practice. And then our delivery team right around Australia also offer that one-on-one advice and consulting work. And then the program that's probably facilitated the most change out of any that we do is Executive Link, which is a 3-year peer-to-peer support and accountability program called Executive Link, which is there to help people really take their business where they want to go in a fast way. And so it's pretty amazing what comes out of that. The 4 pillars that we operate in is based on the analogy that 3-legged pod on the right-hand side. So we've got the 3 pillars that hold up the 3 legs. So how effective we are with managing our land, how effective we are with managing our production systems, how effective we are at managing our business. And then that supports that 4th pillar, being people. So every decision we make is going to have some impact on your land, your production systems, your business, and your people. They're all absolutely connected. And so if we're going to be managing that whole of operation, we need to be considering all of them together. And so they're the 4 key areas we work in and the different types of support that we provide. And we tend to take a long-term approach to working with people, not just do a course and wish people good luck. It was really satisfying last week to have some 3rd-generation clients and a lot of 2nd-generation clients at the Grazing for Profit I ran in Yeppoon. So it's very, very humbling and a real privilege to be working with multiple generations across time and to see the outcomes from that. In terms of what we've got coming up this year, I've just got a nice little image here to show you what we've got in different locations. So you can see we've got Grazing for Profits planned for different regions in the north, and this is just what's left this year. So Grazing for Profits, we've got Farming and Grazing for Profits based from Toowoomba right through to Adelaide. And then we've got grazing clinics, which is the short grazing courses face-to-face. They're spread at a number of different locations, and then the business course in Brisbane. So if anyone's got any questions, best thing is just to reach out to the RCS team and ask them for more information and have a chat with the crew.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And yeah, I wanted to mention at the end of this webinar, we will send out a recording, but also just wanted to share that we will have information on RCS courses and upcoming ones. Hopefully there's one near you. So I'm going to, Lockie, provide you with the remote control and see how this goes.
Beauty. Thanks for that, Matt. And thanks, David. I think that sort of indicates why we were so keen to build a product that supports RCS's principles. I'll dive into this. I don't think it's going to work, Matt. Oh. Yeah, we're working. Yeah, so before we get into our grazing module, I'll give a quick overview of what AgriWebb does. So AgriWebb's a tool that's designed to make producers more efficient and profitable. The 3 core functions we sort of try to focus on and break down is livestock management. So collating all your records for all your livestock, paddock management, whether that be cropping or grazing. There's capabilities to keep records for everything there. and business management. So even your financial stuff, tracking your inventory, what you've got in the shed from treatments and chemical to feed. And then tasks and calendar functions to help with that team management and communication tool on farm as well. So with all that data, we're not just a app to store it. We also provide you with some insights and analysis that can support decisions that you're making on farm. So with all the weights you're tracking in AgriWebb, we will give you things like a graph that'll supply estimations on where your cattle might be over the coming months, cost of production reporting. So if you're tracking finances in AgriWebb, we actually give you gross margins and cost of productions on your animals and your paddocks, and all your paddock grazing intensity reporting as well. Grazing with AgriWebb. Why we, built a tool to support grazing is to allow you guys to plan rather than just record your movements. So now you can plan out your rotations, easily avoid conflicts because it's all in the one spot rather than a traditional paper method. AgriWebb will automatically flag conflicts with your rotations. You can manage on the go. We designed it with the idea in mind that things don't always go to plan, so you can make changes to your grazing charts on the go, bring rest days forward and bring movements back or anything like that. Monitor and share. So that gives you that added communication function, because everyone on the farm will have their own AgriWebb user login. Everyone gets visibility over where the cattle are moving next and what rotations you have planned in the future. So plan, manage, and analyze. So it's about planning your rotations. Once you're up and running, you're managing your rotations with all our map insights. You're allowed to get a visual view of everything mapped out there, where the animals are going to next. And then you're able to look back once those rotations are done and sort of see how they performed, what paddocks performed for you, how those rest days that you applied are working with your paddocks. This is just a quick testimonial that we have from a shared customer that's done an RCS course and utilized AgriWebb to sort of use record some of those RCS principles. We love it. We were able to combine and revisit rotational grazing techniques we learned in an RCS grazing workshop and your software. It's easy and flexible to adjust the plan.
Awesome. I'm going to hand things back over to David, but yeah, thank you both so much. I think it is really powerful to make sure that folks who are joining us today do have a better understanding, not only of how RCS works, how AgriWebb works, but really why we're working together. And David, I really loved what you said around, it's all really about that land, business, but also people, right? And I think that's what we're really excited about today, is how we're bringing people together to discuss these principles, but really just how are we driving change and how are we supporting the legacies of, farmers across Australia. So let me hand things back over to you. And at this point of the presentation, everyone, again, feel free to put your questions in that Q&A section. But what we'll plan on doing is really focus on the first three principles of RCS's grazing principles. And then afterwards, we will dive into, what does the data look like? How is it collected? And really within AgriWebb, how are you making those management decisions accordingly? So David, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Thanks, Matt. I thought we'd just do a bit of an overview, and looking through the list, this is going to be a revision for a lot of you. However, these grazing principles are there as a decision support tool for you. So whilst you've not seen them, I'd encourage you to look at them and go, well, how well are you putting them into practice at the moment, particularly if they're not new? The first grazing principle, and this is the most important, is to have a plan, monitor and manage your grazing. We then want to be adjusting your rest period to suit the growth rate of the plant, so giving plants adequate rest. Principle number 3 is to match our stocking rate to our carrying capacity. And they're the three that, as Matt mentioned, we're going to just dive into a little bit more this afternoon. And then the last part of these principles is also really important, particularly this one here, so managing your livestock effectively. So this is all about making sure that we're getting adequate animal performance. There's not much point having our country in the green if our animals aren't performing and putting on kilos and generating the gross margins and generating the profit. And then we get down to principles 5 and 6. So principle 5 is about having maximum density for minimum time. So that facilitates the pace of change that you're going to see. And then principle number 6 is to manage for biodiversity of plants, animals, soil microbes, every living thing. We want as much diversity as we can within a landscape. So they're the 6 principles. And we encourage people that at least a monthly basis to probably pick up these principles and just go through and use them as a bit of a checklist. How are you going? How's your plan? Where does it need adapting? How's your rest period going? How's stocking rate? How's animal performance, etc. And the more pressure you might feel under as the seasons or conditions are changing around you, then the more often you might pick up these principles. So come back and pick them up again to work out which one of these principles do I need to give some attention to make sure that I'm in control. So this first principle, there's 3 parts to it, and each of them are vitally important. The first part is to have a plan, and it might sound really basic, it might sound really straightforward. However, I think there's a lot of operations that probably operate by the fly of your seat, flying by the seat of your pants approach, and which is good until it isn't. And so not having a plan is fine until the absence of a plan bites you in the bum. And so we really think it's important to have that plan, and particularly need to be thinking about what are your plants going to be needing and what are your animals going to be needing coming up. Because as stewards, we like to use the term stewards, as stewards of your land and as stewards of your animals, our job as the 2-legged creature is to be thinking on behalf of our country and thinking on behalf of our animals, to think about what they're going to need in the future so that we're providing that for them, so that we're putting ourselves in control. Because if we're not doing that, if we're not in control, something else is. You then got to monitor against your plan. And this is going to be covering a few different areas. You're going to be monitoring what rest periods you're actually providing. You're going to be monitoring what your feed budgets are actually looking like, how much your carrying capacity. You're going to be monitoring your stocking rate. So what's happening to the number of DSE or LSU or potentially AE that you're running? What's happening with that stocking rate? How's that going against your plan? And then animal performance. And all of these are going to feed off the others. And we're at that time of year now where you might have some plans going forward with what you think your stock numbers are going to do coming up. However, if you have, let's say, you're coming into your growing seasons now, or you're still in your growing seasons, if that cuts off now, then your sales program is probably going to change, isn't it? Or if you have something change which is going to shift your animal performance or going to shift the number of animals you can run, that's going to change that whole plan. Or vice versa, if you find that your conditions are just perfect, and you're getting really high weight gains, then you're going to get higher LSU and DSE ratings, and therefore you're going to get a difference in your sales program. So we've just got to keep on monitoring against what's happening, so we can go to our last step here, which is to manage your grazing operation. So we're going to have a plan, monitor against your plan, and then we need to be managing. And this is where we're primarily going to be revising your graze and rest periods. So you provide rest by managing how long you're in other paddocks. So there's a strong correlation here between graze and rest. Need to be managing your stocking rates. And then as you find that your conditions are changing around you, as you have a new reality, then you need to do a revised plan. And so this is actually cyclical, isn't it? We're always going round in circles with this first principle, and which is why it's the first one in order of importance, because it all comes back to you as the managers and as the stewards. And the theme that I want to leave with you on that one is about preparedness equals control. And so it's not about having a plan, it's about the pardon me, it's the planning process that gives you the power. And so if you want to put yourself in control, you need to think about what might be coming up ahead. Some good questions to ask yourself is, from a grazing perspective, are you accumulating or are you rationing at the moment? So are you building that feed wedge out in front, or are you eating into that feed wedge out in front? Because what type of plan you're going to put in and what you're going to need to look for against that plan is going to change depending on which one of those two you're in. So we've got to ask ourselves that. And we talk about the grazing for profit school. Well, it's actually a verb. It's not just the name of a fantastic program to attend. We want you to be farming and grazing for profit. We want that to be something that's actually happening in practice, which means you need to put yourself in control. And ask yourself, well, what if the plan changes? So if it rains early, if it rains late, rains really late, how might you react? And it's thinking through these scenarios where you really put yourself in control, because we can't control when it rains. We can't control if the market's going to kick or fall. We can't control if your weight gains are going to be better or worse, because these can be impacted by seasons. And so regardless of what the reality throws at you, if you thought through how you might react to that, then you're better prepared. And so it's that preparedness to think about what might happen and how you might respond to it that puts yourself in control. And as opposed to having a plan and just going, right, there's my plan, beauty, I'll go and put that on ice because it's a bloody good plan. I like that, and I won't worry about looking at it again. We'll just go and implement it. And that's really dangerous because, I mean, we all know this, don't we, that our reality is constantly shifting around us in agriculture. It's such a variable climate. So we need to make sure that we're building in the ability to manage that variability into our day-to-day practices. From a grazing perspective, a lovely question to ask yourself from this preparedness point of view is, are you going to have your mobs or flocks where you want them to be, when you want them to be there, to match your preferred plan and give you options? Or does your plan need perfect conditions to be the one that works for you? And I think the more you find yourself looking at a plan going, oh, crikey, we need everything to work out perfectly for this, that's a bit of a red flag that maybe we need to build a bit more flexibility into the plan, give ourselves some more levers we can pull to manage this variability. Our second principle is all about giving our plants adequate rest. Now, this is going to be different for each of you, how you do this. What's important is you're giving plants a chance to recover. You're not keeping them in that constant grazing phase. And so during your accumulation periods, we're allowing it to get back up to the top of phase 2, which if you're not familiar with that, I'll run through it. And then during your rationing periods or non-growing periods, we still need to be providing adequate rest to look after your root reserves, which is the horsepower that really drives the rate of growth. Your root systems are just vitally important for landscape health, plant productivity, and therefore your kgs of protein per hectare is all driven essentially off root systems. So if you want more kgs per hectare of protein that you're selling, a good spot to come back to is what's happening with your root systems. And it's worth just thinking about, well, actually, how does grass grow? If we're going to be managing grass, we need to look at that, don't we? Here's a little diagram of these 3 phases of growth. And there's some excellent research done on this over the years, that what's growing above ground, you see slow growth, then fast growth, and it gets to the top of phase 2. And that's where a plant is going to put all its energy down into the root systems. And then it'll go into phase 3. And that's really important. We want to let plants get to the top of phase 2 to drive and really set up that secondary root system. As I said, root systems are such a big driver of your programs. What's happening below ground there, you can see in phases 1 and 2, it's a bit like a mirror image, but then in phase 3, your root mass actually depletes. So you might have a fair bit of feed above ground, but you're not going to have the root activity and the root mass below ground, which is going to be counterproductive for us. Now, if we overlay our quality on top of this, it gives us a really important final piece of the puzzle there. Your phase 1 grass, if you look on the left-hand side, it's high quality, it's good stuff, it's rocket fuel. However, we just don't have much of it, which is going to affect your carrying capacity. And we also don't have much happening down below ground in your root systems, which is going to affect your water use efficiency, that's going to affect your carbon cycle, that's going to affect your mineral cycle, that's going to affect your biodiversity. It's going to affect a hell of a lot of stuff. It's going to affect your resilience to temperatures. A lot of things are going to be affected by not having that root mass and depth. Phase 3, if we jump over there, you've got good quantity above ground. However, we've lost quality. And that's primarily because you've had an increase in lignin. So if you're operating on C3 species, you're not going to have as much of an issue of this. However, if you're in anywhere from central to northern Australia and that as a landmass, then this can be a real issue, that increase in lignin. And that increase in lignin and decrease in root mass is pretty expensive to have that occur. What we're aiming for is to have more of our plants in phase 2. So you're always going to be working against one of these. Some of you might be finding that having less phase 1, that's your target, that's the outcome from your management. Some of you might be looking to have less phase 3, so you're trying to keep it in a vegetative state more. That might be your bigger challenge, and each of you will have a different thing to focus on. But where we want to be is phase 2 here, where we've got our best combination of quality and quantity, which is going to drive our productivity above ground, and we want our best root mass and activity, which is what's going to drive your landscape health, natural capital, and therefore your ability to convert rainfall into nice kilos of protein, whatever that protein might be for you. The speed that plants are going to get to the top will change. And this is why this is the guts of principle number 2 here, is that where you've got fast growth, we want fast moves. Where we've got slow growth, we want to slow down the moves. So if we're going to be working in sync with our paddocks and in sync with what our grasses need, then we do need to be adjusting our timing of our grazing plans as we go through the year. And that'll depend for each of you as to what's appropriate there. The whole outcome, why are we doing this? Because a bit of work can go into planning and implementing this stuff. It's to get to this plant in the middle here. Now, these plants are all dug up on the same day. It's all the same grass species. Whereas that one in the middle, that's your elite athlete. That is your superhero grass plant. It's there, and it's primed, it's ready. The root systems just below ground are salivatingly beautiful. They're just fantastic. And what's above ground, you've got enough leaf there, which is going to give you the solar panel to really kick into gear. And so that's the exciting one. Whereas the plant on the left there, it's a continuously grazed plant. And so it's been maintained back in phase 1. And you'll notice it just doesn't have the root mass. So it's a V8 engine, which has been forced to operate on one cylinder. And then over on the right-hand side, you've got the grass plant, which has been over-rested. So it's had no grazing. And as a result, the root mass down below ground isn't doing anything. And it's actually not contributing a whole lot to the ecosystem apart from ground cover now. Whereas that one in the middle, that's the one that's driving the program. And that's the one that's going to make you the most money as well. The third principle, just to finish off on, is that matching our stocking rate to our carrying capacity. To do that, we've got to think about, well, what is carrying capacity? Carrying capacity, it's worth thinking about. Carrying capacity is what comes up from below. So this is what grows up from our soil in response to rain and temperature. And so it's a measure of the feed available. Our stocking rate, by contrast, is what's coming down from above. And so this is a measure of the number of DSC or LSU that you're putting down from above. And that'll change year on year as well, depending on your herd and flock dynamics and what you're doing. But they're opposing forces. And so our job is to try and get them as close together as we can. We won't get it exactly right, and that's not necessarily the goal. Our goal is to make sure that we're not spending too much time understocked, where our carrying capacity is greater than our stocking rate, because we're missing out on too many opportunities here. We're missing out on abilities to turn grass into money, to be grazing for profit. And if we think about what's happening economically, we actually can't afford to be doing that. We need to be taking the opportunities when they're there, because we know that our carrying capacity is going to go through its downward cycles as well. And so we want to avoid being here, because there's pretty bad consequences with that one. And if we think about that figuratively for a moment, we'll give you this visual to think about. We know our rainfall does this across time. And in the middle here, we've got this beautiful fictitious character called average rainfall, which I like to call a unicorn, because it doesn't exist. Now, where you're getting unicorn or average rainfall, your carrying capacity might be at your 3 DSC to the hectare or 1 beast to 10 acres, depending on where you're at. And that might be fine. You can stock it at that so many head per hectare type level. And if you get another unicorn type year, then you can stock at those numbers and everything's okay. And you might have a better year. You might have beautiful conditions and grow more feed than you had. Now, you don't need to change your stocking rate there, do you? You could keep stocking at the same level, but that could be just a bit of a missed opportunity happening down there then. So you're not turning as much grass into money as what you might potentially do. And you could come back into another unicorn year and everything's okay. So when things are good or better than good, you can just stock at a set level and you can potentially work your way through that. It's when we come into these downward cycles, which we know we're going to get, regardless of where we are in Australia, we know this is going to happen, that if we have less rainfall or less poorer growing conditions, it can be multiple factors, it could be a fire at the wrong time. If we try and stock at the same level that we were previously, then we're getting down below the line now. And so now we're starting to eat into some natural capital down below the line. Now, if you've built up a haystack, you might be able to get away with that short term, but there's only one thing a good drought loves, and that's another good drought. They tend to come together, don't they, and be friends with each other. And so if we get that and we get these subsequent years, and if we're spending too much time down below the line here, this is where you're eating into your carbon, your natural capital. You're eating into next year's growth. You're eating into future carrying capacity, your 3P grass health. And this is where you're going to see an increase in weeds and bare ground, is where we're down here. So we need to be thinking about how we adjust. Because if we keep doing that, what happens is when the season starts to come back up, your water use efficiency can be compromised, and quite often is. And so therefore your country needs more time or more rain to be able to respond, which when you get the rain, it's the opposite of what we want, isn't it? We want our country to be absolutely exploding and coming out of the gate strong so that we can be increasing our turnover essentially in those years. And so we want to be just careful as we go through time there that this opportunity loss doesn't get bigger and bigger and bigger, because you might just feel like you've got your country back to where you want to, and you'll come into the next drought. And so this variability is constant, isn't it? And so the reality is, if a station or a farm is strategically only designed to perform in an average or a normal year, a unicorn year, then we're actually strategically designed to fail. Because the reality isn't normal or average, the reality is variability, and that only constant that we're seeing is change. So how do you build that in? How do you put yourself in control and plan ahead so that you can profitably and proactively be adjusting those numbers whilst maintaining that pasture health to be essentially grazing for profit? I'll pass back to you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks so much, David. And one of the things I think will segue us nicely, but it was a few of the quotes that you had shared. And I really love what you mentioned. It isn't about the plan, but it's really about the planning, right? And how are you working through that process? And if that plan or part of that planning process doesn't include flexibility and just these volatile situations that we find ourselves in, you're not setting yourself up for success. So again, I think this is a huge opportunity then, Lachlan, as I pass things over to you, what I might do also is I'll probably maintain control of this. I felt bad for some of the technical difficulties we're having. So Lachlan, just tell me to click next and I'll do that. But yeah, really excited to take also those powerful visuals that you shared, David, especially that, that gold medalist of grass is what I almost took away of that 120-day rested grass was just awesome. And Lachlan, I think, yeah, excited to hear from you on, how do you take these principles and concepts and really look at the data as you're implementing and then managing and measuring accordingly. So I'll hand things over to you and just let me know when you'd like me to go to the next slide.
Beauty. Cheers, Matt. These next few slides are basically going to tie in everything Dave's gone through with AgriWebb's grazing feature that's available in our new grazing module. So next slide, please, Matt. So obviously planning for preparedness, AgriWebb's grazing features give you a rotational planner. So it's not just planning your grazers out, it'll actually give you estimates based on the forage data you've already got in AgriWebb. So it'll automate grazing periods for you based on the amount of kilograms of dry matter per hectare you've got in the paddock. And from there, you can adjust it to whichever you see fit. So this is what it looks and feels like, planning a rotation out. So you apply your rest days to a paddock after you've got the grazing days in the green, and then that's the map there down below. So it gives you that visual perspective of all your movements that are coming up. Next slide, please, Matt. Yeah, the beauty of it too, if you've got all your grazing rotations in AgriWebb, it's going to identify any conflicts that are happening. So it basically puts you in control of you actually achieving those rest periods, so things don't get muddled up in paperwork or spreadsheets. So in the yellow there, that's the program telling us that there's a conflict there. It's just flagging that with us. Next one.
And could I just add to that before you jump off that last one? We've been working with AgriWebb now for a bit over 12 months. So any of you have been using our graze period calculator, that grazing planning functionality there now is based on that. And so you can design a grazing plan based on your forecast stock days per hectare or DSE days per hectare or kgs of dry matter per hectare. Or you can actually do it on a rating as well. So you can go through and put in a paddock rating to do your grazing days, that graze periods. And so that functionality to approach that grazing plan from a few different directions is now incorporated there. Change your rest period, and you get that visual that sits underneath it as well.
Thanks, Dave. So the other component to all this, because there was actually a question in the Q&A asking about multiple users in AgriWebb, if you can give different user roles. So for a quick answer, yes. And the other component with the grazing planner, your whole team actually gets the opportunity to see the planned moves, and it actually automatically create a task for someone to execute that move. And again, with the AgriWebb grazing planner, it is it can be changed on the fly. So if you execute this move on the weekend when it was planned to be executed on the next Monday, you can just bring that rotation forward. The power of rest. So with recording all your grazing data in AgriWebb, you're accurately able to apply rest days to paddocks, and you can also see the load that the paddocks are taking on, so you can adequately give it more rest if need be. Next one, please, Matt. So this is a holistic grazing chart showing us all the history from our AgriWebb grazing records. We see it in conjunction with our rolling rainfall. So this is great to see your paddock load, how well paddocks are performing for you based on your LSU days per hectare, and help identify whether there needs to be a management change if you think that the paddocks aren't handling it well, or you think that the paddock's performing really well. Maybe you can put some more stock in there. Dave, did you want to dive into anything here, mate?
Yeah, I think it's just exciting to see this built into the platform now. That anyone familiar with that grazing chart knows the power of that information to be able to get that visual for what that grazing history has been per paddock. So when was it grazed, and how long for, and what sort of rests have been incorporated. And then down the bottom you can see your monthly rainfall and when during the month that's come, and what's happening with that rolling rainfall. So how much rain you had in the last 12 months. So in this example here, you can see the rolling rainfall's jumped up considerably in that last 12 months. And so you can think about what that would mean for you at a management level. And then vice versa, if it was going the other way, well, are you making adjustments with that? And that total load that Lachlan was just mentioning there, it's such a powerful number. That number there is the equivalent of somebody that's doing cash cropping, knowing how many tons of wheat per hectare they pull out of a paddock. And I'm yet to find a farmer that doesn't know what their yield has been out of a cash cropping paddock. And that stock days per hectare number that's there is showing you what's your yield, grazing yield been out of that paddock for the last 12 months. So we can do some inter-paddock comparisons. You can see which paddocks are performing, which ones are underperforming. You can monitor the outcomes of management changes as well. So as you start to trial different things and try different management practices, what's happening to that yield across time? So there's so much information just in one spot there that's I really just encourage people, don't undervalue having that, because I know from my perspective, going and working with somebody that's got a grazing chart versus going to try and help them to identify some land or animal performance issues without a grazing chart, it's a lot harder to identify the potential causes where a grazing chart doesn't exist, which takes more time, and time is money.
And we did actually have a question in the Q&A. Sorry, Matt, I might be jumping the gun, but Ian mentioned it would be, a handy tool to be able to see total load while you're out in the paddock. So you can pull this up on your phone and see this live when you're driving through your paddocks. Next one, please, Matt. So this one's just, calling out again that we can make these changes on the fly. So as David mentioned, a plan's all well and good, but you do need to manage that plan. And at times growth rates might slow down. So our grazing module was built with this in mind, and you are able to bring rotations forward or increase rest periods as you go on the fly. So nothing's set in stone.
And it's really easy to make that change on the go to when you go to enter a graze or basically confirm a planned move. It'll pop up and say, hey, you need to make an adjustment here. How are you going to do it? And that follows through. So it's quite intuitive there. So the way you've done that's been really good.
These are some visual insights you get with all your forage data that's already recorded in AgriWebb. So you can pull up, this is 1 day's rested. So it's color coded, obviously. And it's got a key at the bottom there indicating what the colors are telling us. So it's a really good and easy snapshot that you can quickly pull up when you are just out in the paddock. There's a few others. There's one, grazing days remaining, which basically just calculates all your forage data in conjunction with the amount of animals that are in that paddock, and it'll tell you how many days you've got grazing. So that's what you can quickly look at without getting into the nitty gritty of planning a rotation. You can get a holistic view of your whole farm.
And something I might add in there is it's been really fun to listen to the team that works directly with our customers on this. And one of the hacks that they've shared is, it's great to actually be able to use these map insights with this view, so you can actually see, visually with colors, where haven't you been grazing animals, and as you're building that next plan or that next rotational plan, where are the best places to go. So it's been really cool to hear the team, just share how they're not only using one screen, but actually maybe having their phone out while they're building the plan on their computer. How are they actually, using different insights that way? Awesome. Lucky, keep going.
So matching stocking rate to carrying capacity. So this is the one of the big goals David ran through with all your data in AgriWebb. Just having accurate animal numbers, you're going to get a really good indication of where you are and how close you are to your carrying capacity goal. So Dave, did you want to mention anything here, mate?
No, just that we're in discussions and around incorporating the stock days per hectare per 100 mils. I know that's come in a few of you are asking about that. So how to bring that in so that you can be not only seeing your rolling rainfall, but seeing what's happening with that SDH or DDH per 100 mils. And it's in the development pipeline, I'm told. That one's coming. And the other one there, Mossy, is also about being able to see that yield in the paddock there. That's the other one we've been discussing as well for that to come in. So that's that next step for you, isn't it, as a company at AgriWebb, is to have those couple of tools at place there. So you've got the 12-month data there now, and it's coming back to that paddock data to really close that loop for what's happening close that loop for being able to use the animals to help you to get accurate with your feed budgeting skills. And so that calibration bit that we talk about in the schools, or how to calibrate, how to do a feed budget, and how to use the animals to calibrate. So from a planning point of view there, at the moment, I'm still working with clients with some of the RCS spreadsheets to do some of the forecasting and to do some of that paddock level detail there. And then you're using the information in AgriWebb there for the monitoring. So it's a combination of the tools at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, at the moment with AgriWebb, you've got your current year and historical years forage data in there. So you can really accurately try and match your stocking rate that way. And obviously, you're not always getting an average rainfall year, as David mentioned earlier. So if you're using AgriWebb consistently over the years, you're going to get some pretty cool insights and help you estimate where your farm might be in different seasons.
All right. I think we're, now to our time for question and answer. And we definitely have some good ones, both in the Q&A and in the chat section. And Lockie, I know you talked on this one a bit, but I think it would be really helpful to dive into that different levels of user permissions, because I know that that's a big one that we hear a lot. So yeah, do you want to walk through just some of the examples of the different roles that we've got?
Yeah, sure. So with any AgriWebb subscription, you get unlimited amount of users, whether that be staff or family member. Everyone gets their own user login. With a user login, you can actually grant people different levels of access. We call them user roles. So for example, if you've got a spray contractor coming on farm and he just needs a farm map, you can just give them a map only view. Or if you've got a junior farmhand, you can give them farmhand access so they can make all their livestock movements and everything like that, but they can't adjust any reporting or affect any farm details. So there's pretty well a role for everyone on farm, and it's uncapped with how many users you can have per subscription.
Perfect. And awesome. I see, David, I wasn't sure. Do we want to put the LSU and DSE calculator available to everyone?
Yeah, I can't seem to be able to.
I'll
sorry.
double buy it. No worries.
Yeah, I'm just trying to share that one.
Yes. As I'm doing that, the next one, I know we'll start from a bit earlier in the presentation, and Pramod, I don't know, I see, can I get a few farmers who are using DSD for their operation and management? So that could be one that you could reach out to us if not sure exactly what you're asking, if it's more just getting in touch for examples, but feel free to reach out following the webinar there, unless David or Lucky, you have any insight into that one.
Not sure what referred to a DST, sorry.
Yeah, I wondered if it was supposed to be maybe DSE. But then Prue, it says, so are you able to enter inventory like SDH without a grazing plan?
Yeah, without the grazing planning add-on, you can add all your forage data into AgriWebb still. So you can still see some pretty cool insights without having the grazing planner. The grazing planner is more taking that data and actually helping you make management decisions off it.
Perfect. Yeah, we have another one likely to you, Lockie. So as we continue to fence, will we lose the historical data? And I'm assuming that's in AgriWebb.
Yeah, so it sounds like that might be about splitting a paddock in two, for example. So with that, you can just bring your forage data across to share across both the paddocks. And if you're doing it at a scale, the support team can jump in and give you a hand with tidying things up there. So yeah, we definitely be able to maintain history on your paddocks if you're chopping and changing fence lines.
And then I know more of a product question for Scott, just asking, wondering how long before we can have our DSE day per hectare over 100 millimeters on the chart plus graph. So that's definitely one that we can chat with the product team and get response back to you. But I guess, Lachlan, anything on your end that you'd want to add there?
Yeah, David sort of touched on that, and it's something we've been working with RCS on. I'm pretty keen to, with the amount of interest in it, we're pretty keen to get something in there sooner rather than later. So yeah, we can't give much of a timeline, but yeah, it's definitely something we're working on.
Mm-hmm. And then Claire had asked, what could we do once we finish a grazing plan? Can we extend it or start over again in the AgriWebb grazing app?
Yeah, you can extend a plan, or it's just about building the next rotational plan for that mob if you want to start again. But if you finish the plan and you think, oh, I want to you know, keep this rotation going, you can just adjust it and add more paddocks on the fly.
Perfect. And then another question, it says, have you got a screenshot or demo of how to forecast livestock weights? Maybe that's a good follow-up, Sarah, that we could get you in touch with someone, and we can even follow up with an email too with some of that information. But also, you know, Lachlan or David, anything, I know more you, Lachlan, anything on your end on that one?
Yeah, basically what there was charts in the presentation, but they were probably shrunk down a bit too much to really dive into. But what that looks like is with any two weights that are recorded to an animal, you're given insights like average daily gains, and you're given a chart for that animal's estimated weight gain over time. So definitely something I'd be keen to dive into further if you want to reach out after the webinar.
See a few more coming in. Yeah, keep the questions coming. Well, one, it just Scott said, thank you. The one of the powerful parts of the RCS grazing chart is the bottom part of the chart. So not sure exactly which one, but yeah, thanks for the comment there. Lachlan Godson says, if you are forecasting livestock weight gains, are you also forecasting pasture growth, more so in C4 plants to say average rainfall data?
No, not yet. We're not forecasting pasture growth based on rainfall data, but it is something that we're definitely very interested in hopefully building towards. But yeah, it is something that we've had requested specifically since we've been working with RCS. It has come in requested quite a bit.
And one of the key approach that we take for that, Lachlan, is around forecasting out that DDH per 100 or SDH per 100. So that is essentially the proxy we use for pasture growth, is that relationship between rainfall and stocking rate, and which way those two factors are working together, which does the job of trying to forecast what sort of growth rates you think you're going to see in your grasses for you. And I found that a simpler approach, to be honest, to give you that idea about which way things might be trending.
And a shameless plug I might add is one of the really cool projects our research and development team is working on with MLA and a few other partners is called Foragecaster. And really the goal is, how do you take historical data and really, you know, looking at efficiencies and resilience, and how are you able to then build almost a model that you all as producers are able to use and almost input different weather patterns and different scenarios to better understand what that forage can be. Still very early days, but happy to share information about that if that is of any interest to those on the call. All right, we'll go with Lynn and Carl. They ask, after you build your mob, number of head and LSU and AgriWebb, how do you update this monthly or weekly? Is it automatically based on average ADG, or do we update it manually?
So that's both. You can decide to override the LSU or DSE AgriWebb's giving you, or yeah, you can just let it ride its course and have those updates come in manually based on things like age class and breed and species.
I'd be recommending that you do go through manually and just have a look to make sure that the information you've got reflects what you're seeing in the paddock.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors with what is actually behind your LSU and DSE ratings, and it's such an important number to have a hand on, because it drives everything from measuring what your paddock yields have been to looking at what your total stocking rate, to be able to give you confidence in you to working out your gross margin per DSE, gross margin per LSU. It's such a useful and powerful number that you can use to guide so many decisions, that I don't think you want that to be just automatically entered and then therefore not be confident in it. And so it's just about developing that system. There's a few different ways that you can do it in AgriWebb from what I've seen there. So just about finding out what's the quickest way for you. But I'd be running a management eye over those numbers so that you've got confidence. You know, the old thing of garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, and you know your cattle better than we would as well, and it varies to the area and what what they're grazing on as well. So yeah, best practice would be to jump in yourself and update those DSE numbers manually.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll keep some things going. So Prue asked, what other platforms does AgriWebb link to or able to upload data from? I'm happy to take a stab at that, and then Lachlan, I might toss it over to you. But yeah, AgriWebb is very much our goal is to develop integrations with an array of ag tech, knowing many farmers are using, whether it's remote water monitoring to EID scanners and scale heads. So yeah, we really focus on integrating with a lot of those. So for example, with remote water monitoring and, Farmo, FarmBot, AgBot, from the EIDs, scanner and scale heads, when you're running a live session or crush side data collection feature within AgriWebb, you can actually connect to, your Gallagher's, your TrueTest, Datamars, and so forth. And then from a remote sensing standpoint, we also work with SIBO Labs in that capacity if you manage in feed on offer or FOO. Obviously, we're talking about a different style here. So, but wanted to share those. I guess, Lachlan, anything that I might have missed there?
No, you covered that off well. And I think with the integrations, it's just about if there's a spot in AgriWebb to record something and another company is already recording that, we try to make that flow of data seamless. So we try to remove the double handling there and just have information flow straight in. For example, integrating with your weigh scales with those weight records, they're just automated to a live session in the yard, so you don't have to upload a spreadsheet afterwards.
I see another one. An anonymous question in the Q&A. Does AgriWebb have capacity to calculate gross margin for LSU and other key RCS financial metrics? And if we need to toss that to one of our product experts, we can certainly do so and follow up with this person.
Yeah, we might have to. Could you repeat that one? Sorry, Mark.
Yeah. So does AgriWebb have the capacity to calculate gross margin for LSU and other key RCS financial metrics?
Yeah. So you can do your gross margins per animal. I'm not sure about LSU. We'll have to dive into the reporting functions, and if you want to drop a name in the chat or something, we'll be able to follow up with you after.
Yep. And feel free, if you'd like, we'll be sending, like I had mentioned, a recording of this webinar to everyone who joined. So feel free even to respond to that email if you feel more comfortable doing it that way versus in front of a bit of an audience. And we'd be more than happy to walk you through everything. We're 3 minutes from the end. I see one more question, I believe. Maybe there's two. But with Ian Moss, it's actually around SIBO. Ian, we can answer SIBO questions maybe offline, unless Lachlan, you want to take this one on around, do we still need to have SIBO Lab biomass estimates feedings into AgriWebb to be able to use the forage utilization and grazing days function?
SIBO Lab's just automating that biomass figure for you. So you can override what SIBO's telling you and put a figure in yourself, if that's what you're asking there. So yeah. If you do have SIBO, you don't have to utilize it for every paddock. You're welcome to ground truth it and override it.
And I see a question from Natalie around, can AFM, offered by SIBO and MyMLA link in with AgriWebb, or does it require a paid subscription? At this point, it would need to be SIBO Labs' pasture key. So it would be that paid subscription that would integrate directly with AgriWebb. All right. Well, we've got one more minute, and I gave them a heads up, so I'm sorry that it's not a surprise question for our panel, but I do always like to end these webinars with, what's one final thing that our panel would like to leave with our audience. So, David, I might lob it over to you first, and then Lachlan will have you round things out.
Links back to what we talked about before, Matt. I just encourage people to put themselves in control of their programs. Don't allow yourself to be in a position where you are not in control. And that comes through that planning process, that thinking ahead. It's quite literally worth hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to you return on time investment to put yourself in control or to get the skills or support to help you to get in control. And it's the secret weapon, I think, in ag. The more skills you've got around this to plan everything from your stocking rate to your carrying capacity to knowing your gross margins, spread issue, etc. It's such a strong correlation with profitability. And so just keep chipping away to work out what's that next step look for you, because each of you will be different as to what you need to do to achieve that. But just keep chipping along with it and have fun.
I love that. Yeah. And Lachlan, one from you.
I think my main message would be I imagine people that tuned in today, some of them would have done an RCS course, or some of them would be at the very start of their grazing journey. I think, yeah, my takeaway and final message would be that no matter where you are on that grazing journey, the earlier you start, the better. So the earlier you start recording data, recording your rotations, planning them, and having somewhere where you're storing all your forage data, all your movement history, you're simply setting up the next generation. You're setting them up for success, and you're going to help yourself stay in control of your own operation by maintaining that data somewhere.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and I also just love what Rebecca put into the chat. But we would completely agree. We're thrilled to be working with RCS and really looking forward to integrating more of the principles, the measurements, all of that into AgriWebb to make sure you all, as you're adopting these RCS principles, able to then track those even better in AgriWebb to really have that one-stop shop. So at that, I thank everybody so much. So one, just give a virtual round of applause to our panel. Thank you to those who spent the last hour with us. I thought it was a really powerful presentation and discussion. Be on the lookout in the next couple of hours for a recording of this discussion, so you'll be able to watch that whenever you'd like. And even more importantly, there's a lot of really great programming happening from RCS here in the next month and beyond. So within that email, you'll also have links to each one of those courses. So you're welcome to register. And a reminder for AgriWebb customers, please reach out to us. We actually are able to provide a little discount for you all for these courses. Thank you, David and team at RCS, for that. But more importantly, again, just get out there and begin if you're nervous about getting started. But if you're continuing on, continue to collect that data and let us know how it's going. Awesome. Well, everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.